and on very, very interesting topic and very illustrious profile as well. She's currently the Chief Business Officer, Consumer Platform Advertising at InMobi, a company I'm sure most of you must have heard about, a company which started in 2007 and became in 2011 a first ever Indian unicorn startup. And it's a very illustrious journey there as well. And Vasuta comes with, like I said, very accomplished as well as an illustrious career. After her graduation from BITS Pilani and her MBA from IIM Bangalore, she worked only in two companies. One is McKinsey for 2 years, and then for the last 11 years plus 2 months, she has been with InMobi. And currently, like I said, she's a Chief Business Officer at Consumer Platform Advertising. And like I said, she comes with very, very great experience, especially an experienced leader with 14 plus years of experience across the digital industry and strategy consulting domain. And she is exceptionally skilled in leading and scaling large business teams, running a P&L, driving revenue growth, building strategic business partnerships, and running business transformation programs. And I'm sure all of you who have been business leaders or who are currently leading different businesses, I'm sure you must have come across some other engagement, either directly or indirectly, about the AdTech. And all the finesse, all the science, all the great innovation that you get to see are run by companies like InMobi and somebody like Vasuta Agarwal. So we have herself talk to us about what is the all about, the advent of AdTech and what's the new marketing agenda. Over to you, Vasuta.
Thank you, Dr. Nagendra. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure being here today with all of you. Over the course of the next hour, we will spend, maybe 40 minutes or so in going through some of the content that I've put together for today's session. And then, the last 15, 20 minutes or so on any questions that you may have. Just to give you a sense, the way, we'll do today's session is that I've tried to make it, around more about maybe the basics, starting with the basics of AdTech and then going into a little bit of, where this is headed in the times to come. So let me kick it off by sharing my screen quickly. I hope all of you can see my screen.
Absolutely.
Great. So let's get started with, just simply what is, the definition of AdTech. And I'm sure most, if not all of you have heard this term now for the last decade or so, because this business has existed in India since, the advent of digital advertising back in the good old days of search advertising. But AdTech essentially, in a nutshell, it just means all, technology, any kind of tools and software that help any advertiser, whether it is a brand or a digital agency, to plan, strategize, and manage all the digital advertising activities. So basically, it is a technology-enabled way or a tool and software-enabled way for all players in the digital advertising ecosystem to buy and sell media. So the AdTech system essentially consists of two major parts. One is like any economics equation, right? There is a demand side and there is a supply side. The demand side is the people who want to spend money on digital advertising, which is the advertisers. And the supply side is people who want ads on their digital properties, whether it's a mobile app or a mobile website, or in the world of connected TV, it could be on the connected TV side. So any kind of entity or publisher who is looking to show ads and make money through advertising lies on the supply side. So that's the highest level definition of AdTech. And if we were to then, go deeper into some of the jargon, right? Again, for some of you who may have engaged deeper in this topic, or, even come across a lot of these digital advertising and AdTech jargons, I thought it's useful to just talk a little bit about what that means, just decrypt some of the AdTech jargon that we hear in our everyday lives in this space. So here I've put down, 5 or 6 key jargons which you will hear. But these are used very, very heavily, and they're very important when it comes to media buying, because these are the metrics or the KPIs which advertisers or the demand side players use while running their digital campaigns, while measuring their digital campaigns, and also figuring out the ROI of their digital campaigns. So the first one is CAC, right, which is essentially nothing but customer acquisition cost. This is the cost that an advertiser incurs while trying to acquire a single customer, right? So that cost could be, what is the cost of me installing an app? It could be the cost of, how much do I have to spend to get a user to do the first transaction on my website. It could be any sort of action which the advertisers quantify as a customer acquisition event. And the cost of doing that is what we call CAC. CPC, cost per click. This is something typically that advertisers pay on. And so every time a user clicks on an ad, a customer clicks on an online ad on a publisher's website or app, the advertiser pays a cost per click for it. So that's called CPC. CPM is cost per 1,000 impressions. This is another model of pricing or buying that advertisers use to pay publishers, which is for every 1,000 impressions that a user saw, there is a certain price that they will pay to the publisher. CPM and CPC are the most commonly used pricing models or metrics in terms of when advertisers are trying to buy, especially brand advertisers who are looking to increase their, for example, user reach or reach create awareness about their brand. Typically, they will pay the publisher on impressions or clicks. CTR or click-through rate is the rate typically at which customers will click on an ad or any kind of landing page and go to click on an ad and then go ahead to a landing page or the end destination. That's called the click-through rate. And click-through rate typically gives a sense of the engagement the user has on the ad, because it assumes that only when the user saw the ad and they clicked on it is when the user actually engaged on the ad. So CTR is a very important metric that advertisers and brands look at when measuring their ad campaigns. LTV or lifetime value. This is a very important metric which has come over the last couple of years. And this is important because this is different from just the CAC, right? The CAC or the customer acquisition cost is the first time calculation of what it took an advertiser to acquire a customer, the price that they paid to acquire a customer for the first time. But the quality of the customer also matters. And that is what refers to the lifetime value, right? Which is, for example, if I am a customer who just came the first time, bought something on an e-commerce website or app, and then I never visited that app or website again, I will be a low lifetime value for the advertiser. Whereas if I'm a customer who comes maybe once every month or once every 2 months back to the advertiser's website or app to make a purchase, I'm a high lifetime value for the advertiser. So the lifetime value of a customer matters. And that is why increasingly, as advertisers spend on media campaigns, they look at not just the CAC, which is the single first time price paid, but also the LTV of the customers that they are acquiring, because that's not just the first time, but overall over the the relationship that they have with that customer, how much revenue or profit they make from that customer. So that's why LTV has become a very, very important term. Some other jargon to decrypt and talk about, and we will go a little bit deeper into this, because if you are in the AdTech space or you want to understand the AdTech space, you cannot escape these jargons. So the first one is RTB or real-time bidding. Right now, increasingly, as AdTech has advanced over the last couple of years, a lot of the digital media buying has moved to what we call programmatic or automated media buying. So RTB refers to the process of automated media buying for all kinds of programmatic impressions. Then DMP, a very commonly used term in this world, which means data management platforms. These are basically platforms which aggregate all the data for an advertiser, whether it's related to their users or different touch points the advertiser has with their users. And this is used to improve targeting, used to improve communication, used to improve the ROI of campaigns that advertisers run. Most advertisers and agencies in today's world use DMPs because it's become a key part of digital advertising to use this user data for targeting and for measurement. The third big term is DSP, which is demand side platform. This is, like we talked about earlier, this is the demand side of the AdTech equation, which is in the programmatic world of AdTech, which is the automated AdTech buying. DSPs lie on the demand side, and they are used by advertisers to buy impressions or to buy media in an automated way, in a programmatic way from publishers. Similarly, SSP or supply side platform is the supply side of the equation, where it allows publishers who actually have the ad inventory to sell their digital media and digital ads in an automated and programmatic way. And lastly, PMP, which means private marketplace. This is an advanced version of the whole programmatic buying ecosystem, which allows advertisers and publishers to operate in an automated and programmatic way, but in a very sort of closed environment, in an invitation-only private environment. So that's what PMPs essentially mean. Let me move to give you the full landscape of who the different players are in the AdTech ecosystem. Now, if you see here, starting right from the top, right, I think advertisers and agencies, we already talked about a little bit. Advertisers are those who are wanting to spend money on digital campaigns and to buy media. Agencies typically are the ones who represent advertisers and are responsible for allocating and managing all the advertisers' media budgets. So that's the role of digital agencies. And then ATD is a new term, which is Agency Trading Desk. This is an arm or a division within the agencies, which usually does the planning, buying, and managing of all the ads and media for the advertiser in a programmatic and automated way. So they are the programmatic buying arm of the agencies, and they're called ATDs, Agency Trading Desks. And these agencies or agency trading desks then use the various DSPs or the demand side platforms to buy the actual media digitally, to buy the actual ads digitally from publishers. So essentially, ATD is the team or the service that the agency provides from the media agency side, and they use DSPs to actually buy the media. And so the DSP is essentially the platform for buying the media in an automated and programmatic way. From the SSP, which I already talked about, or even the ad exchanges. So these DSPs are directly plugged into an ad exchange or into an SSP. And the SSP and the ad exchanges are the ones which have the ad inventory, right? So supply side platform or SSP is where publishers put their inventory so that the DSP can connect to the SSPs and buy the inventory, or even ad exchanges, which allow advertisers and publishers to buy inventory without any kind of intermediary in between. Some other terms to be familiar with in the AdTech landscape, and you will see that these players also exist in the ecosystem. One is ad servers. So ad servers are used, again, they are a technology or a part of the AdTech landscape, where they are used for allocating inventory for a publisher, right? So they will decide which part of the inventory should go to which buyer. They will also collect all the data and around clicks, impressions, and so on. So ad servers are part of the supply chain in the AdTech ecosystem. And ad networks is, where a lot of the unsold inventory, which publishers have not sold directly to the ad exchange or the SSP, usually goes, right? And publishers will usually try to sell their inventory through the ad networks. So that's, some of the big, I would say, players in the ad tech ecosystem, and who form, different parts of the supply chain. This I thought was, very interesting to just show that, there's the AdTech Lumascape, as we call it, consists of so many different players, right? So among the different platforms that we talked about, whether it was DSPs or SSPs or, DMPs, or so many other aspects, right? These are different players in the ecosystem of the AdTech landscape. So for example, if you look at demand side platforms here on the top left, you have, the likes of DV360, Xandr, Tradesk, MediaMath, right? So many of these DSPs in the ecosystem. Similarly, SSPs, right? There is a whole plethora of SSPs that exist in the ecosystem. Again, a lot of big names here that you will see, right, on the SSP side. And just to also state, it is possible for a company to have multiple parts of the platform. So for example, InMobi has its own DSP, it has an SSP and exchange. We have, our own DMP as well. So it is possible for an organization to have different technologies and different platforms as a part of the whole ad tech supply chain. Similarly, you see some other things here. There's a lot of new technologies which have come, for example, to manage ad quality, right? Because we know that it's not possible in a programmatic landscape to manage quality of ads in a manual way. So a lot of solutions like GeoEdge and Double Verify and so on have come to manage ad quality, right? Or for example, to manage fraud, these malvertising solutions, to make sure that the fraud in the digital ecosystem is going away. Then there are measurement partners, right? You have the like viewability measurement partners who ensure that the ads that a user is seeing are 100% viewable. They are not being seen by bots and so on. So a lot of these quality measurement solutions have evolved over time to make sure that the whole ad tech supply chain is having the right transparency. Any kind of fraud and low quality is being weeded out. And increasingly, as we move forward, you will also see a lot of these identity management solutions like LiveRamp and Lotame ID5, because as the ecosystem evolves, there is a lot of changes happening on the identity side. So these identity management solutions help advertisers and agencies to make sure that they're able to reach the right users on the supply side. This is a simplified, sort of just way to show you, how programmatic advertising works. As AdTech, evolved, programmatic advertising became very important because just, operating AdTech platforms manually was a very, I would say, very operationally intensive, very inefficient task. It led to a lot of, overlap of work, overlap of users. It was leading to, lower efficiency for buyers and even for publishers. And so that's the reason, programmatic advertising evolved to, benefit in terms of automation, to allow advertisers to, reach the right users in a very precise way, to bring efficiency in the ecosystem and also transparency, because now advertisers and agencies and ATDs know exactly which users they are buying, which impressions they are buying, right? So it leads to a lot of transparency in that way. So if you see on the left side, right, the way this chain starts, there is an advertiser or an agency sitting on the left, and they are trying to reach on the rightmost a target audience or a user. So for example, let's say I am Coca-Cola, and I want to reach users in the age group of maybe 18 to 25 with a new beverage that I have launched, and these users should be in tier 1 cities or tier 2 cities, and that's the requirement that I have. Now, so I go and I tell my ATD this, my trading desk agency. The agency, they have a DMP and DSP, data management platform and demand side platform that they use. They are able to look at pulling in raw data into it. They bring in different data sets to analyze, collect data, and they put those user segments in the DSP saying, this is what I want to buy. Now the DSP goes directly to all the supply side partners that you see here, right, which is the SSP, the supply side platform, exchanges, and even sometimes the publisher directly. And through all of them, right, it's able to then give right information about the users, and obviously also about the creatives, right, in an automated way, and make a final call, right, saying that this is what I want to buy. And then the right impressions reach the end audience that the brand was looking for, right? So that's essentially how the whole programmatic advertising supply chain works, to make sure that the advertiser is able to reach the right audience, working with multiple supply partners, and making sure all the things around identity, right, creatives, all of that is taken care of. Similarly, just to give this example, combining, the last two slides of, like I said, if your advertiser is, let's say, Coca-Cola, and you have end publishers, right, who, Coca-Cola wants to reach, or end users, rather, that Coca-Cola wants to reach, it works with, these different partners, right? So there is a host of media agencies that, it'll work with. The media agencies are working with, different measurement partners here, measurement and verification partners. They have their own trade desk, or ATD, right? That ATD is working then with different DSPs to give the mandate saying, this is what I want to run. And of course, things like creatives, ad serving, all come into the picture. And once the DSP has all the information saying, okay, these are the kind of users you want to reach, these are, your creatives, the DSP then starts, targeting that information on different ad exchanges, on different ad networks, different SSPs, right? So this whole thing here is the supply ecosystem, the ad exchanges, SSPs, and ad networks. And the DSP is also able to pull in information from other data management platforms, from other retargeting platforms, and run this on this supply. And finally, that information reaches the publisher and serves the right ad to the right user. So, and all of this is happening in a matter of milliseconds, because otherwise this equation and supply chain just doesn't work. And that is the power of technology in advertising, or even the power now of programmatic, because all of these auctions, all of this bidding is happening in a matter of milliseconds, right from the time the DSP bids on different impressions to the time the user sees the ad and the data flows back. So that's a sense of the supply chain and how it works. I'll spend maybe the next couple of minutes going a little bit deeper now into the terms around programmatic. How does measurement work? Because those are very important aspects of the new age marketing agenda, and how AdTech is evolving. So programmatic advertising has 3 or 4 types. It can be in the form of real-time bidding, which I already talked about, which is an open auction. It is an open auction between advertisers and publishers, and the advertiser which has the highest CPM bid, right, or the highest price, wins the auction on an impression. So if there is an impression on a publisher to be bought and there are 5 advertisers bidding for it, the one with the highest price wins. So that is the open auction, the real-time bidding method in programmatic advertising. Then there are specialized ways in programmatic buying. There is preferred deals, there is a private marketplace, there is a programmatic direct way. So preferred deals is a one-to-one programmatic auction between a publisher and an advertiser, and it's done on a pre-decided price, right? And only for a select group of advertisers. So it is a limited auction, which is run by the publisher for a limited group of advertisers on a pre-decided price. So this allows the publishers to be more picky and choosy about the advertisers that they want to run with, and it allows them to get a premium in their pricing. Private marketplace is another form of, a more closed auction, unlike the real-time bidding, which is a more open auction. Here again, only specific advertisers can bid on the publisher. Only thing is, this is not a pre-decided price, like in the case of preferred deals, but it still allows a select group of advertisers to bid on a publisher. And programmatic direct is, it doesn't use any kind of auction in programmatic. It allows advertisers to buy the inventory directly without any kind of bidding process. So it's an invite only kind of an auction to buy the inventory directly. Moving, to the sort of maybe a few slides around measurement and around attribution, and why that's very, very important. Ultimately, the efficacy of any digital advertising campaign lies in the ability to measure it correctly and being able to attribute things correctly to a particular media source. So tracking, that's why, is a way of figuring out the ROI for an advertiser, that if I spend, for example, 100 rupees on a campaign, what did I get out of it, right? So advertisers typically will end up measuring metrics like impressions, like clicks, like conversions, and increasingly these metrics are becoming more like, saying viewability, how many people actually viewed my ad fully, or how many people spent X amount of time and attention on my ad. So the metrics are evolving, and they're becoming more and more advanced as we move forward in the ad tech space. So impression tracking is nothing but just simply tracking the number of impressions an ad received. So if I showed an ad, if, was it 1 lakh people, was it 10 lakh people, how many people actually saw my ad, right? It is very much like, impression is very much like an impression in a print ad or a TV ad where the user just saw the ad. So that's an impression or an eyeball in some ways, tracking. Click tracking is more unique to digital platforms because that can only be tracked on digital platforms. This actually tracks how many people clicked on the ad, and it's done via, click trackers. There is, whole host of third-party partners who provide impression and click trackers for advertisers to measure this. Conversion tracking is, done on a goal that the advertiser actually considers to be a conversion. So maybe if I am, a OTT advertiser, for me, a conversion is when the user actually goes and opens my app for the first time. Maybe if I am an e-commerce advertiser, my conversion is when the user actually signs in or logs into my app and makes the first purchase, right? So the conversion goal can be different for different advertisers. And they measure these conversions typically in 2 types of ways, right? It could be click-through conversions, which is when a user has clicked on the ad and, converted, or it could be view-through conversions, which is when a user has seen the ad, but they didn't click on it, but they still converted, right? So it's a lot of times, it will happen that even if a user just sees the ad, they will, they may not click on it, but they may still go and, make a purchase or open the app. So that is called view through attribution. So, different kinds of measurement and tracking exist in the ad tech ecosystem. And similarly, if you look at, specifically attribution, and I'll talk just a little bit about this, is, any consumer, if you see when they go on digital, they have multiple touch points with a brand. So for example, I could see an ad, on a website, then I may go and, see the same ad on inside another app. I may see that ad on search. I may see that ad on a social page. So a lot of different places, touch points that a user has online with a brand's different touch points. I may directly go to even the brand's website or the brand's social page, right? So, so many places from where a user can come and interact with the brand. So there are a lot of online attribution sources which a brand has to keep in mind while doing their marketing attribution, right? The traffic that is coming, for example, to their website could be, from just search engines. Like, I look up, let's say, saying maybe Mama Earth on Google or Microsoft Search, and then come back to the app or to the website of the brand. I may go to a YouTube page or Twitter handle and then come. So all of these are different attribution sources for traffic for a brand, and they're called either organic or social or website, when you directly go to the website, or they could come from paid channels, which is via all these AdTech platforms. And I think on the online attribution models, I already talked about last click and view through. Increasingly, there is also a need to have cross-device attribution, because a user can interact with a brand either on the desktop, on the tablet, on the phone, and ultimately it's the same user. So a brand needs to then attribute and say that, how do I figure out the same user across multiple touch points when they are across multiple devices? So that's why they have to attribute conversions accordingly. So this was, maybe just to give you a flavor of what measurement and attribution in AdTech looks like. It's extremely important because it gives brands the ability to measure ROI of the digital marketing campaigns, which is very, very critical, because of course, when they're spending money, they need to understand, what was the benefit or ROI that they got. And that's what all these measurement and attribution technologies allow you to do in AdTech. Now we'll move, just in the last maybe 10 minutes to a more forward-looking view of, where is all this headed, right? What are some of the future trends in the next couple of years that are shaping up? So here I've just, put just some top 10, 12 kind of trends that are, very, very macro level, for just leaving it as thoughts with you. And the first one is around AI. I'm sure all of you have heard of artificial intelligence in different contexts, and artificial intelligence does have a very important role to play in AdTech as well. In fact, already AI, has seen so many uses in AdTech, whether it is around creative optimization, whether it is around, fraud control, whether it is around user segmentation and targeting. AI has already become a very, very important part of AdTech and will continue to rise. GDPR, this was, a law introduced in Europe a few years back to help users, have better control of their privacy and of their data when it comes to digital and online advertising. And this law then, in different shapes and forms, has become, prevalent across many, many countries. In the US, even India has brought its own version of these user privacy laws, and the user privacy will become front and center in digital advertising and AdTech as we go forward. DOH and mobile data. So DOH is digital out of home advertising. This is a new area which, like you saw the billboards or the out of home, campaigns. Billboards are now all getting increasingly digital. And they have already come in the fold of AdTech and digital advertising. And location-based advertising obviously has gained a lot of momentum. So this will also be a rising trend in the next few years. Similarly, new technologies around voice-activated ads. Voice search is already a big deal when it comes to search. Similarly, voice-activated ads is going to see an increase. Wearables, right? Everyone has started, whether it's fitness devices, smart watches, all of these different technologies will, in some shape and form, see, some rise of AdTech and the advent of advertising. Personalization, right? Personalization is very, very important in digital advertising because there is so much data that exists in the digital advertising ecosystem. And so advertisers have the ability to personalize the communication for a particular advertiser in a big way. So for example, if I am a consumer who is, my first language, let's say maybe is Hindi. I, stay in a small town in, UP, and I consume a lot of, let's say, gaming apps, right? So the kind of ads that a brand or advertiser should be able to see should be very much linked to the interests of this user, right? And that's what personalization will do. It will help to make ads and advertising more relevant, more personalized, and much, much less intrusive. Blockchain and ads.txt again is about bringing more transparency into the advertising ecosystem. Same as, programmatic, it's an evolution of the programmatic ecosystem. And then omni-channel programmatic. This is, where all the different screens that I was talking about, which is desktop, mobile, tablets, and even connected TV now, all come together. So different channels of advertising come together, and programmatic allows you to buy from all these channels in one shot, right? Without the complexity of having to deal with different devices and technologies. So that's the benefit of omni-channel. And finally, I think on the digital agency side, there's a lot of, push happening in the ecosystem where advertisers are pushing their agencies for, more outcome and performance driven, goals and payments. And in fact, a lot of advertisers are also looking at, in-house setups of trading desks, in-house setups of programmatic, because everyone wants that control and transparency when it comes to digital advertising. Just ending here with 2 or 3 just slides and leaving you with a note. User privacy I already talked about. So the shift towards user privacy and control has already started in the last few years. If you look at, it started with Apple back in 2020, when Apple has actually, requests user permission now to use the user data and user identifiers. And so if you are an iPhone user, unless you give permission, your user ID and your device information cannot be used for advertising. Similarly, Google has also taken that move, right? Google has decided to deprecate third-party cookies by 2024. This again is a move to, help users get back control of their data and make sure that, that data is being used in the right way when it comes to advertising. So increasingly, you should, expect a lot of these changes in the next few years, and user consent to use users' data will become a big part of all of consumer internet workflows. Again, I touched upon this, which is new and immersive user experiences will gain momentum. So as technology advances, right, especially in the AI and ML and metaverse kind of spaces, these will all become about, creating more storytelling in marketing and taking it to the next level, right? So whether it is AR and VR, whether it is things like live streaming and gaming, immersive experiences that help the user to engage, help the user to, become immersed in a brand story are what will gain momentum, because I think both on the brand side and on the user side, people are looking for disruption in the user experience space. And lastly, AI, again, I touched upon this, and this revolution in global advertising has already started. AI already forms a very, very core part of the marketing value chain, and it will disrupt areas, whether it's personalization, whether it's targeting, whether it's measurement and ROI, everything will be impacted by AI in the years to come. And you should, keep an eye out on some of these technologies like Web 3.0, which are just starting to take off and will impact marketing in a big way. So that was it from my side. I will now, hand it back to Dr. Nagesh for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Vasuta. I really appreciate your time and very interesting canvas as well. I think a lot of questions are pouring in. Let me take the first one. I think one of the questions that is being asked is, I think, related to the, I think now people are also hearing about platform businesses as such, right, which are basically the two-sided market. So how does this entire idea of, the AdTech work in a two-sided market or in a two-sided business kind of, for example, it's a TV network, right? So how does it work there?
So if I understand the question, so AdTech, if you see, it is a two-sided marketplace, right? So like we talked about,
yeah.
AdTech is, there is the demand side and there is the supply side, right? And the demand side, which is, the advertisers agencies, connect to the end user through the supply side, which is the digital publishers, right? Which is the apps and websites and any other now increasingly TV, connected TV, sitting on the supply side of the equation. So AdTech also works completely on a two-sided model, right? It is because it is not possible to do it without that. I think the interesting part is that the technology layer, right, and especially with the advent of programmatic, allows you to bring in, the transparency and efficiency that the demand side is looking for when trying to reach their users. So maybe compared to some of the traditional media like a print or radio or even out of home, that aspect of transparency, efficiency, automation is very, very heavy in the ad tech ecosystem compared to the some of the traditional channels. Interestingly, though, now even TV is moving to connected TV, which is connected to programmatic, and even your whole billboards, right? They're moving to digital out of home, which can also connect to programmatic. So we see increasingly even the traditional media moving to ad tech and this two-sided marketplace.
Very good. I think picking up from where you're talking about the efficiency part of it. I think one of the things that one question also is asked is I think one good thing that you get to see is the ever-evolving landscape in the Indian ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, also the right. And then it is for them actually who are definitely trying to scale up, and that's where they need the lot of push from the ad tech players or ad tech itself. Now, how probably it will be, or how easy, probably expensive, or how easy it is for some very fresh startup to make sure that he or she can scale up?
I think for startups, actually, I would say digital advertising is very easy to start now, right? You may not start with a full-fledged agency and ATT and DSP, all the sort of ad tech platforms and players that we talked about, but it's still very easy or much easier to start on the digital advertising side, because a lot of these platforms are completely self-serve, right? And they allow you to operate or start with small budgets, right? So whether it is social, or it is search or video, most of these platforms are self-serve, and they allow you to start in a small way and with very efficient budgets. So I think that's the great part about digital advertising, that it is actually meant for startups, right, who are looking to scale and reach a certain level. And then once you have reached at a certain scale, then all these different components of ad tech around, having a digital agency, using a DSP, trying to bring in a DMP, all of those come in when you have reached a certain scale. So I think it's actually a great place for startups to kick off their marketing.
Very good. And there's a question actually from Mr. Paras Jain. His question is, what are the challenges for programmatic advertising? Thank you, Paras.
I think the challenges for programmatic advertising, there's a couple, right? So I think one is even today, just the awareness and understanding of it, because it can become complex technology-wise, right? So I think within advertisers and their teams, the awareness of that ecosystem is still, I would say, in the earlier nascent stages in India and some of the Asian markets. So there is heavy reliance on, external partners or external, let's say agencies and trading desks where that expertise lies. So, and I think it's important, given the role programmatic and, the AI and so on will play, to bring or at least have that knowledge and experience in-house as well, and not be completely dependent on external partners. So I think that's one important one. I think the second is also just, the skill gap in, let's say, running programmatic, understanding all these terms, understanding, what are the best DSPs, who are the best SSPs to work with, how do I use data, how do I optimize, all of these things. While that skill gap has started to reduce, it still exists. So there is a need to, bring that learning and knowledge within, again, the brand marketing teams and so on. So those I do see as, two for sure. And then I think on the technology side also, there is quite a few, right? Because just data, right? Not all publishers have, say, richness of data. So how do you make sure that, you're getting the right signals that you want to use for targeting? Sometimes even, duplication of, efforts or even supply sources, right? So even though it is efficient and transparent, there can still be a lot of, overlaps, etc., and wastage that can happen. So those are still some challenges which are being solved through new technologies.
Thank you, Vasudha. I think this is a question from Mr. Gaurav. I think he wants you to revisit the second-hand slides, I think which is especially to do with the AdTech platform ecosystem, as well as, the AdTech platforms themselves.
Okay. Is this the one?
I think we have not seen the.
Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet. Not yet. I think it's going live now. Yeah, I think second and third is what I think he's requesting.
Okay, I think this. This is the AdTech jargon one, right? This is these two.
Yeah.
Okay. So quickly, right? So CAC is, I would say, customer acquisition cost, which is the price or the money that an advertiser pays to acquire a single customer. So for example, let's say, I'm Myntra, right? So to acquire a customer for me means, a user who actually downloaded the app and made the first purchase. And so the money that I had to shell out to get a user to make the first transaction is my customer acquisition cost. CPC is a user clicking on an ad, and that's what the advertiser pays for. The cost of a single click, maybe it is 2 rupees or 3 rupees or 4 rupees, but cost per click is what an advertiser pays every time a user clicks on an ad. And CPM is every time advertiser pays for every 1,000 impressions of the ad that a user sees. So these are two different pricing models, cost per click and cost per impression. CTR is the click-through rate on an ad. So if a user clicks on, let's say, sees an ad 100 times and clicks on an ad 2 times, then the click-through rate is 2%, right? So that's the CTR. And LTV is lifetime value of a user, which means that the money I make from a user as a brand over the lifetime of the user, that that user stays with me. So let's say I'm a brand which is maybe let's say I'll take OTT again, right? So for me, the lifetime value of a user is, and the user is has a monthly subscription with me. So every time a user pays me money, that's my lifetime value. So over a year, maybe if a user has paid 50 rupees every month, over a year, the lifetime value of the user is 500 rupees of revenue for me. So that's what LTV means. AdTech platforms, RTB is real-time bidding. It's an automated way of buying media and used in the programmatic ecosystem. DMP is a data management platform which is used by brands to collect and analyze data. DSP, demand side platform, is on the advertiser side of the ecosystem, which is a platform used by advertisers and agencies to buy media, right, digitally. And SSP is on the supply side, which is used by publishers to sell their digital inventory to advertisers. And finally, PMP, or private marketplaces, is a private auction which is held by a publisher in the programmatic ecosystem to sell their inventory to an advertiser.
Thank you, Vasudha. I think we have a next question, which is from Mr. Gaurav Gupta. And his question is, how connected TV is associated with the programmatic?
So connected TV is already a big part of programmatic because the programmatic ecosystem, if you see, it is essentially nothing but a technology layer and a way, for advertisers to bid in an auction on publishers' inventory. So connected TV inventory, whether let's say it's from YouTube or any of these OTT guys, now the inventory that existed on the app, on the mobile app, is now also available on television, right? So that same publisher has their inventory available both on mobile phone and on TV. And the same technology layer of the DSP, which was available for mobile and desktop, is now also extended on television. So in that way, it's an extension of mobile and desktop, because the same publishers exist on both sides, and the same technology is now being extended across connected TV as well. And even DSPs and SSPs have all invested in extending that technology already on the connected TV side. So connected TV is already a very big part of the ecosystem in the US and all Western markets. And it is growing very, very rapidly in India as well.
I think one last question for today evening session is, I think this started around 2018, Vasuta, if I'm right, and that's where we got to see IT companies like Infosys, Wipro, Tech Mahindra, Cognizant, Accenture, etc. They started buying this advertising and digital transformation, as a part of their journey. This kind of players, for example, Infosys buying Brilliant Basics and Wong Doddy, Wipro buying a Design It and Cooper, etc. So when you see, and that seems to be continuing even today. So when you see IT companies getting into this digital ad space, how is it going to change the landscape, and what kind of new of course, in the last two slides, you were talking about how the future trends are going to be, right? But with IT companies, getting into this space, how are they going to be controlling the space, or what kind of new addition would they be bringing to the table?
So the way I read this move is, if you see, a lot of these IT companies were already building technologies and softwares for a lot of these advertisers and agencies, right? And I think the realization over time is that the value is not just in building that technology or software, right? But actually also managing and planning and controlling the ad spends, because for an advertiser, right? So in a way, they're moving up the value chain, right? That just from building the technology, they're now also starting to manage, control the media budgets which use that technology, right? So that's the way I would read this. And obviously it will bring a lot of competition in the digital buying space, right? Because it'll create more competition in the digital trading desk, the agency space, because as these guys move more into buying, planning, creatives, all of these things, these were core functions of the agencies, right? So as they develop their skills and their expertise through these acquisitions and mergers, they are in some ways also trying to control a bigger part of the value chain of digital advertising.
Great. So with your permission, can I take one more question? Last question. Yeah. There's a question from, very interesting one from Mr. Abhishek Kumar. And his question is, how are you currently reaching and engaging the sizable and valuable audiences whose browsers don't support third-party cookies? Thank you, Abhishek.
So today, if you see, yes, so and that is what Google is looking to do, right? Is actually to deprecate all third-party cookies by 2024. So that is something which will be a reality. And that's why, if you remember in my session, I mentioned that identity solutions or user ID solutions is becoming a very big part of the ecosystem, right? And companies which are solving for ID solutions will have a lot of importance, because what these people are trying to do is build alternate IDs to the cookies to actually connect a user across different platforms and across different, either browser, app, and so on, even without the need for cookies, right? So that is one where they're building alternate IDs, which are also going to take care of a user's privacy, right? Because users have to opt in and agree to share certain information and data and so on. But one is alternate IDs. And secondly, a lot of companies now are using, different technologies to reach user. They're using, for example, a user's context, right? That, okay, instead of using the third-party cookie, saying, okay, if this user is in a website which has entertainment as content, then, it's this kind of user. So there are different kinds of technologies that are evolving to use targeting, do ROI measurement as cookies go away. That's like a 1 hour session of its own, so it's hard to explain in 2-3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Vasudha. I really appreciate your time, especially on Saturday evening. And I think, like you rightly said, it's a very evolving space. And I think what we got to see, what at least what we get to hear, is definitely some companies and trying to, I think, in-house. I think one of the slides was talking about, should they be exploring this kind of thing? I think that is a science that they're trying to explore. But yeah, I think with the availability of a lot of talent in this space, maybe yes, I think that's the case. But yes, it's a very interesting space to look forward to in the years to come. And thank you once again so much for your time, as well as a wonderful session, Vasuta.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure being here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.